It is easy for people to wear something called a cultural lens. Having a cultural lens prevents you from seeing the inequality that society has created. With your cultural lens on, it is hard for you to see the injustices we deal with on a daily basis. It makes you blind to the oppression and privileges that create problems in our society. It wasn't brought to my attention that I had one until I took EDEL 244, which is where I was explained what it meant. It started to make me realize that I have had a cultural lens my entire life. Having a cultural lens is something that you should always be seeking to change in order to reach your goal of teaching for social justice. By taking off your cultural lens, you are accepting the injustices in our society and using them as a teaching tool for your classroom. By doing that, it allows you to educate your students on how to recognize and become aware of their own cultural lens and to make them feel empowered to make a difference. If educators can make their students aware of the injustices in the world, it will prepare them for the democratic society we live in and will prepare them for being the generation of students to put an end to all the injustices. Children are not too young to obtain this kind of knowledge. A lot of the time, we doubt their capability and avoid confronting the issues. The classroom is the perfect place to address these issues when they come about. Use the questions students might have as a learning tool for the whole class and solve the issue when it comes about. This isn't really something that you can prepare for because it happens so naturally in the classroom, but it is important to know that questions will come up in the classroom and educators need to be prepared to use those questions as a teaching tool. Before taking EDEL 244, I was completely blind to most of the injustices in the world, but this class really opened up my eyes and made me realize that being an educator is a lot more than just teaching based off the curriculum. I now feel empowered to make a difference and know that it is possible to do so. Oppression and privilege are also huge issues that people deal with in our society. Oppression pertains more to the non-dominant group, whereas privilege deals with the dominant group. Even though oppression might affect the non-dominant group more, it still affects everyone. As sad as it is to say, our society is based off the dominant group's values and beliefs, and that is where the problem occurs. Because the dominant group receives more privilege than others, it allows oppression to take over our society at times. It is important to understand that privilege is something that should be eliminated. Most people don't realize that they even have privilege because they've never been asked to question it. Those who are privileged walk through life without asking questions, which makes other groups have to question most of what they do. Looking back on our reading from the beginning of the year titled Making Systems of Privilege Visible, it explained that the characteristics of the privileged group define the societal norms, which often benefits the privileged group. The article also explained that those who are privileged often rely on the privilege as a way of avoiding oppression. Oppression is a huge problem in our society and is something that people have to deal with in their everyday lives. Those who are oppressed often don't have a say in societal norms. They are silenced by the dominant group when they try to stand up for what is unjust in fear of the dominant group losing their privilege. This affects society as a whole because it creates a divide that should not exist. There is no set of rules or laws that states the dominant group has all of the control, but since society allows it to happen, it is a very powerful issue. This problem creates inequality in things such as beauty products, pay, single stories, and most importantly, education. All of the things I mentioned earlier, cultural lens, privilege, oppression, and power, are all issues that appear in the classroom. Oftentimes we forget that students don't come to us with nothing. They come with a lot more knowledge than we give them credit for. By the time they reach our classroom, most of society's norms are already within them, which is good in a way. We can use that knowledge that they already have to give them a better understanding of the issues we face every day as a society. One of my favorite readings from this semester is titled Creating Classrooms for Equity and Social Justice. This is one of my favorite readings because in it states, classrooms can be places of hope, where students and teachers gain glimpses of the kind of society we could live in and where students learn the academic and critical skills needed to make it a reality. I think this quote does a wonderful job of briefly summing up why teaching for social justice matters. There are going to be issues about race, gender, social class, sexual orientation, and many other things that come about in the classroom, and kids are very curious about the world and are able to recognize discrimination. They will not be afraid to point out differences and ask questions. As an educator, it is my job to answer those questions with as much knowledge on the topic as possible, so they can carry that information with them for the rest of their lives and be part of the solution rather than the problem. Before taking EDEL 244, I was very unaware of the issues that I presented earlier. I am thankful for EDEL 244 and the information it has taught me in such a short amount of time. It has changed my outlook on life and has helped me establish my true purpose for becoming an educator.